You're listening to Two Guys, One Jock with Brian, Scott, and Tim. Two Guys, One Jock may contain mature content that may be unsuitable for some listeners. Scott, you got anything to throw in there?
I don't know, menage a trois with Power Rangers.
Offended. So if you're offended by anything, please turn off the show now. Hey, welcome, Tim. How are you, sir?
Too big of a load.
Okay, Tim. Thanks for that. You once again came through strong for us. Anything else there, Tim?
I have a hard on as well.
Okay, you're a freaking weirdo. All right. Let me introduce you, Scott.
I'm afraid that you're going to play some stupid-ass clip of me, too. So, no. Suck your cock.
Okay. Don't worry. I can edit all that out. All right, guys. It's that time of year. It's draft time. Most important time of year. Hopefully you've been listening to us and learning from us. Now, that all being said, we did our draft rather early so we could kind of discuss some of the strategies and some of the things that we have learned through the years, and you can use them for your draft to help win your league. Now, Scott, I already have your team pulled up. You shocked the shit out of me this year.
As I do every year.
I think the first few years I've played with you, you were always good for running back.
Yep.
The last year I think I played with you and you went running back and then you grabbed Jimmy Graham on the turn. I think you were 12-13. Shocked me, but at the time I think it was the best pick. Now this year, you ended up with the slot I wanted, pick 12. What did you do with it?
Well, let's see. I started off in a 12-team league by drafting wide receiver and tight end. And then, not to be outdone, I waited for my next turn and went quarterback, wide receiver, not bothering to take a running back until the fifth round, end of the fifth round.
Now, I fell out of my chair about every time you picked somebody. I know you talked up Dez Bryant, and you and I both had him last year. You're huge on him, so I wasn't shocked. And if I remember correctly, I think A.J. Green was off the board.
No. The first wide receiver off the board was Calvin Johnson at 11. So it was 10 running backs and Calvin Johnson off the board at the turn.
Okay, I thought Megatron and AJ. So you did have Dez. I was right then. You did have Dez ranked higher than AJ Green this year.
Yes, I did. Dez was my 1A.
Okay.
If anybody's going to outscore Megatron this year, it's going to be Dez.
And you know what? You're not the first person I heard say that. So, ballsy pick either way. Because I think, in my opinion, running backs are money in the bank. But we are playing.
Keep in mind, by the time I'm picking, you're talking about the top 10 running backs are off the board. So, Alday's gone. Doug Martin's gone. Charles is gone. Foster's gone. Rice is gone. Lynch is gone. Spiller's gone. Morris is gone. McCoy's gone. Richardson's gone. Your surefire money in the bank guys are gone. And now you're talking about guys that are hopefully running back ones, but they might be running back twos. And,
you're drafting and we play FanDuel scoring half-point PPR. Dez is actually, I see, standard league, Dez is going to tear it up. And I that's my thought at least. But in a half-point PPR, he's even that better, much better. Jimmy Graham, I agree with you, he's going to go nuts. So if I had the 12-13, I was considering going running back Graham. Just because he's the only elite tight end that I see this year.
Yeah, it's Graham and then everybody else.
Yeah, because with our buddy over there in Patriot Land being a question mark still, and you and I are both even today had read different articles. Mine saying he might be on the PUP, and you're saying he's going to start week 1.
No, he won't start week 1, but he'll avoid the PUP. They're thinking maybe week 3 or 4 is what I'm seeing. But it's a big question mark. Who knows?
And the other shock was Cam in the 3rd round. So, where did you have Cam ranked with your quarterbacks? 3?
Yeah, I had Cam 3. I had him and Manning were my 3-4, and you know how I feel about old Broke Neck Mountain. So it was, and Cam, I actually really wanted to wait on quarterback. We've talked it up. Quarterbacks deep, and sitting at the turn 3-4, 4 quarterbacks were off the board, which really shocked me. You knew Breeze and Rodgers would both go early, but RG3 and Kaepernick both came off the board before the end of the 3rd round.
Well, you've got to remember we got some homers in our league.
Yeah, I understand, and I really think RG3 and Kaepernick will have big years. I mean, I think they both are very capable of being top 5 quarterbacks. But as the one really challenging part about sitting on those turn spots, in a 12-team league, is you're talking 22 guys are coming off the board before you get to make your next choice.
Yeah.
4 quarterbacks off the board. We always talk about draft and value, but you also have to be flexible. And my fear was, I'm going to end up with Tony Romo as my starting quarterback if I don't go with quarterback here. And I was dead on the money right. I started the quarterback run essentially. And I think you ended up with Peyton Manning mid-4th round, which was a great pick.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, I was going to be okay with Romo, but I was looking at my team. I want running back. And I'll pull up my team in a minute after I have a few more questions for you. But you're right. And Manning was sitting there in the 4th. I couldn't pass him up. It was one of those situations, and you're right. You did start the QB run. After you picked the 4th QB off the board.
5th.
Was it the 5th? Cam was the 5th off the board?
5th off the board because RG3 and Kaepernick both came off.
3 and Cap. Okay, so.
And once you went with Manning, that scared everybody because now everyone's looking at the board going, man, there's only 3 or so guys left I want. Ryan was off the board right after you. Brady right after that. Russell Wilson right after that. Andrew Luck after that. And one of our good friends was sitting there in the 5th round going, just shaking his head going, what happened here? And he's stuck with Matthew Stafford, who he's really not sold on.
Well, the other guy that really got screwed, he couldn't make the draft, and he did pre-rank his players, and his team was coming together pretty nicely. Somebody grabbed a quarterback early, and then in the 5th, or I think it was the 5th round, grabbed another one.
Yeah.
And he ended up with Eli Manning as starting quarterback.
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Well, that's a. I was gonna say I would be okay with Romo. Between you and I, if that quarterback run didn't start, I was going to be okay with Luck. But wow, I didn't want Eli as my starting quarterback. Now, you did a great thing, in my opinion. Late rounds, mid rounds, you grabbed Bell.
Yeah, that injury just kills me, though. The thing that really killed me is I was really, and we've already talked about this, I was really excited for our boy from Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. We were Giovanni Bernard, and you and I both wanted, but you and I both were thinking, I'm going to grab this guy late and stash him, and he's going to play for me this year.
Yeah. So, anyways, I passed on him on this turn. I went ahead and I grabbed Bell and Sproles, thinking Bernard's going to be there later. And, I'm happy with Sproles as plugging him in.
RB2, I'd be happy with him.
My strategy really was I want 3 guys, running back 2 caliber that I can kind of rotate in and out.
Absolutely.
I grab Bell, I grab Sproles, and then coming around that 7-8 turn, I'm thinking I'm getting Bernard and I'm my 3rd wide receiver. And our league requires 3 wide receivers plus a flex wide receiver or tight end. So wide receivers have a lot of value.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have went that at the beginning. We're in a unique league. We don't start 3 running backs. We start 3 wide receivers, tight end, and then a flex wide receiver, tight end.
With 2 running backs, QB, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's standard, with half-point PPR, which kind of takes some of the wind out of running backs.
Right, which is another reason why I was kind of shocked to see 10 running backs off the board, because I didn't go into the draft thinking, I'm going this way. This was a reaction to what happened. 10 running backs off the board, okay, I'll roll with it. I'll go the other direction. But, Giovanni Bernard getting yanked off the board, 1 spot ahead of me. I had to go with the guy that has killed me over the years. And I sent Brian a copy of my lessons I learned from last season. I try and make some notes at the end of each year so that come next season, I have something to go back and look at. What did I learn from last season? My first rule from last football season was not to draft players I know I shouldn't just because they're great value. Ryan Matthews and Michael Vick cost you the championship.
Yep.
So what do? I miss out on Giovanni Bernard by 1 pick, and I take Ryan Matthews.
But you know what? That was so late. He was a value pick, and he's looked solid.
Oh, yeah. until he breaks his collarbone again, he's going to be great.
I was going to say, and hopefully he'll play 6 weeks, and Bell will come in. Dwyer and Redwood will stick up the place, and they'll be waiting for Bell to come back in to start, and you'll be okay.
I'm hoping Bell's back before my bye weeks really kick in.
Well, and the other thing, you're so good in the waiver wire. I have a feeling you'll have another running back that's ready to roll as we move forward.
Well, that was another reason I went with the strategy I did. One of the things you brought up in your notes is, be aware of your league's rules. When we go with the standard, last guy to pick is first on the waiver wire.
Yep.
So I know that I have the first choice in the waiver wire. We don't have a real deep bench in our league, so there are handcuffs that are floating around on the wire, especially when you have to start so many wide receivers. So I know right now that, I'm thin at running back, but if someone goes down early in the season, I'm going to have first dibs on them.
Yep, and it's going to happen.
And if someone's going down, and I'm going to be the guy at the front of the line saying, "Give me, I'll take him."
Well, that was this morning. My wife's yelling at me.
Just this morning.
Well, as usual, I'm on my phone on the RotoWire app, just kind of scrolling through to see the injuries. And I saw C.J. Spillers pop up, who happened to be my first pick. And I was crapping my pants. Going,
yeah.
Okay. But that's why you need the apps. You need to pay attention to what's going on, because if your number one pick goes down early, you better find out who's backing him up.
Yeah, well, you better already know who's backing him up.
But I'm going to tell you, let me go through your team. I'm playing you week one, and even with Bell off the board, they have you beating me. You've got Cam at quarterback. You got Dez as your number one wide receiver. Number two is Bo. Number three is T.Y. Hilton, who's been killing it in the preseason.
Yeah, I can't believe that the Colts haven't put him as the number two over Day. I mean, come on.
He was listed most of the time at 3 last year, and I had him starting a lot, and he would always light it up for me.
He's going to get his touches, and I'm relatively confident with him as my 3, but I'm extremely confident with him as my 3 because, to me, I got my secret weapon at wide receiver stashed on my bench.
Well, hold on, let me get through it. You got, as of right now, since Bell's out, you got Sproles at 1, and you got Ryan Matthews at 2. Is that how I see it? How's you're playing it? You got Graham, the best tight end in the game. And this is funny because I was the one that was high on this guy, and you currently have Cook, and you probably haven't set your board. But you took Jared Cook early enough.
No, I actually took him. I plugged him in as my flex. He's actually my flex for right now until Blackman comes back from suspension.
Yep. And I was getting to that. But Jared Cook, they've been lining up as tight end. They've been lining up at slots position, and he's going to get his touches.
Yeah. See, I'm not sold quite yet on him, but I know how strongly you feel about him. So I think I got him in the 10th round. And at that point, I'm sitting looking at my team basically saying, okay, I've got with the way, and like you said, we have kind of a unique league. But with the way we're structured, if you hit on 2 money tight ends, you can play them both.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that was kind of my thought was, if I can get a money tight end backup, great.
Hey, I was a pick away from getting Gronk in the 5th round. And I really like your Flyers, and here's why. Blackman, LaFell, Little. Blackman's out beginning, 2-game suspension or 4?
4-game suspension.
But you got Little in there. While, what's my guy that I was in love with? What's the
Josh Gordon.
Well, Gordon's out, so Little's going to be getting tons of targets there.
I'm hoping.
And you got LaFell. You and I both, I remember talking about we tons of upside in our opinion. And if Steve Smith is kind of fizzling out, he's really going to have a lot of upside.
Yeah, I think he's got some upside. Plus, for me, he's a hookup. So, that week where I'm a little bit nervous that I'm going to get blown out, I roll the dice, throw Cam and him out there, and they hook up a couple times.
Boom.
Yep. Boom, you're done. Yep. So, yeah, I think my wide receiver depth, I didn't take any running backs. Hey, I better have some wide receiver depth. I'm really happy with it. Tight end, if Jared Cook pans out, I've got the option, and it would probably be sacrilege, but I got the option of dangling Graham out there to get some help.
You know what? And you got to remember, you got a huge and we'll talk about this when we get into our how to be successful. But you got a Saints fan in the league.
Hi, my name's Timmy, and I love the Saints.
Well, hold on. You got to remember who else he drafted.
Tied in. Keller.
Yep. He's ready. He's ready for Keller. So, I tell you what, I do like your thoughts. You had to go get Dwyer. Did you pick him up after the fact?
Who's it?
Jonathan Dwyer. Did you pick him up after the fact?
Yeah, I picked him up after the fact. I actually was looking at the preseason, and I don't put a whole lot of stock into preseason, but I know for a fact that barring injury, Cam is playing every week but the bye week for me. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind. I don't care what the matchup is, Cam starts. So I took my backup quarterback after the injury. I said, you know what? I've got a backup quarterback that I had drafted Josh Freeman as my backup. I don't see him as being worth a whole lot more than any of the other guys on the wire for a 1 week fill-in. So I went ahead and dropped him to pick up Dwyer as an insurance policy running back while Bell's out.
There's and that's smart, and I'll tell you why. Before the bye weeks even kick in, we've got Palmer sitting there. I'm kind of high. I'd ever say that Sam Bradford might have a good year. There's a lot of
Alex Smith is sitting out there. You know how high I am on Alex Smith.
Well, and for in all honesty, Cam's the one running quarterback that I'm not worried about. He's just a beast. He gets hit and he gets back up.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. You need your running back depth, and I really like Powell. We talked about that and watching the train wreck that is the Jets, and with Sanchez hurt and Geno Smith just not looking like NFL caliber quarterback, they're going to have to feed the rock to somebody, and Chris Ivory's not going to hold up.
Yeah, but he's not, and I think Powell's going to get a lot of looks. He's going to get if Smith has to start, he's going to be dumping it off to the running back, and I think that's more Powell's game than Ivory's. Ivory's not a receiver. Powell's been getting looks in the Wildcat. I think he's a sneaky play at this point. Someone's going to have to try and do something for the Jets. I mean, the Jets are one of those teams that if you've got any Jets on your roster, hey, I'm sorry. Sucks to be you. Raiders, Cardinals.
If you have time, look up Rex Ryan's last press conference.
Hey, winning preseason games is important.
And trying to explain why he put his multi-million-dollar supposedly starting quarterback in the fourth quarter and got him hurt. He's like turning away from the press, yelling back. It's just hilarious. If you had a chance, look it up on YouTube. I did it earlier today just to see it myself.
I do have to actually point out one other pick I made that was actually more of a ha-ha than anything. I went ahead and... What's that?
Tim Tebow in the second round?
No. Nothing that stupid. But I went ahead and instead of waiting for the last 2 rounds to take my kicker and defense, I moved it up a round. So
I saw that as well, and I knew you had a flyer in mind. That's why.
I took my defense 1 round early, and went with the Rams, and then I grabbed my kicker. So for my last pick, I knew I had 1 running back left that I was kind of looking at, but my problem, and that was actually Danny Woodhead. Well, actually I had 2. Danny Woodhead and Pierre Thomas were both on my board. Problem is, I've already got Sproles and I've already got Ryan Matthews. So basically, I punted. I said, you know what? I'm going to take a guy that I know I don't want. So I know who the first guy I'm cutting is because I'm going to be. You know how I am with the waiver wire. I'm active.
Yep.
I actually thought about taking Tebow, but I didn't want to get the ultimate grief from everyone. So I went ahead and took Mikel LaShore.
I was going to ask you, when you saw that, did you see me typing away?
Yes, I did. I figured that was going to raise some eyebrows. People scrambling to figure out, did Reggie Bush go down hurt? I mean, what happened?
But Bell, he's like number 4 running back there right now.
He was my placeholder of, well, I don't know what to take here, and we'll just punt, which is probably stupid, but I don't know about you, but I get into positions where I go, I need to pick this guy. I need to pick whoever. I don't know who to drop. and I freeze.
I did that today.
Well, I didn't want to do that. I said, I know I'm going to have to do something here in the next week or two to address something, an injury, somebody getting, dropping on the depth chart, whatever. This is my placeholder. So I moved my kicker, my defense up. I stuck my placeholder in, knowing who to drop. And when I needed to grab the wire, there wasn't any question. It was just, there we go. See ya.
It's funny you did that, and it's almost genius, because I'll tell you why. You and I have talked a lot about Denver running backs. And the one position I did not need was running back. I dropped my backup tight end today, because he's completely a flyer. What is it? The Bengals, Eifert.
Yeah.
And the only reason I drafted him right at the end.
He drafted him because you're a tight end whore.
But if you look at my team this year, right now I only have one tight end.
Yeah, I'm sure it's killing you.
Well, it is, but I'll tell you what, though. They were lining him up all over the place, and they were so high on him. I said, you know what, I'll take a flyer on this kid at the end. And since we're a wide receiver tight end flex league, if he's getting his looks and touches and breaks out, he'll be worth it. But I haven't got to watch much football. I've been working so much, I've been out of town. But I've been reading as much as I can. And Hillman has lost 2 fumbles, and Ball hasn't really done much.
Please. Call him Rondane.
Rondane. I'm sorry. I forgot that's his name for him in our league. I picked up Noshan today and dropped my backup tight end, kind of like you dropping your quarterback.
I actually considered grabbing Noshan. Really, truthfully, as far as I'm concerned, he should be starting in Denver.
I think he will be, because
I don't think he will. I think they're so bound and determined that they don't want him to start. But I think if it was a fair competition, he's the better of the 3 backs. I mean, he brings more to the team. Now, of course, he'd get hurt.
He's the most all-around back.
He can run, he can block, he can catch.
And that's the biggest thing for me. With Peyton bobblehead Manning in there, they're not going to put out somebody that can't block. And if Ball's failing in the pass protection, they're not going to start him.
Well, you know what? Ball can do everything on that list except for run, block, and catch.
I'll tell you what, though, Scott. I was so proud of our league. Ball was selected as a backup. There's a couple. Our league did a pretty good job drafting. Ball didn't go early, and like in a lot of these other leagues I'm looking at.
Yeah. They didn't buy into the hype.
I will explain why your draft is probably better than mine and where I screwed up in my thoughts. I wanted either pick number 1, 2, or 3, or 10, 11, 12. I did not want to be in the middle. I either wanted to get the Muscle Hamster, Jamal Charles, AP at the beginning, or wait to do what you kind of did, see where everything was going.
Flip everyone the bird and do the exact opposite.
I would have grabbed a running back where you're at, but I would have probably, if Dez was there or AJ Green, I probably would have grabbed one of those 2 guys over Graham. But hey, what you did, who knows? We'll see how it pans out. But
Now, looking at your team, I actually like how your team ended up. There's a couple guys in your team I just don't like.
Okay.
But I mean, I think you have a pretty well-rounded team.
I wasn't big on CJ Spiller, but he was there at number 7.
Right.
I thought he was top 5.
Well, okay. I mean, let's look at it this way. We're in a 12-team league.
Yep.
And we've preached value, value, value. At number 7, CJ Spiller. I mean, come on, you can't go wrong there.
Yep.
Next round, Steven Jackson's still sitting on the board because some dodo head didn't take a running back.
I was going to say, thank you, Scott. That's why I got Steven Jackson.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, without me, because if I had played like everyone else, I would have ended up with, I think, Forte Jackson backfield, which I wouldn't have been terribly – it's not that would have killed me. It's what it would have done to the rest of the positions on my team. I would have had, to me, inferior backs to others. Other people have been rolling out Jamal Charles and C.J. Spiller, and the best I could counter with would be a Forte.
We're going to talk about this later, but you drafted to the rules of the league.
Oh yeah, I think maybe this is the time to kind of go transition over from team-specific. Well, let's run through you real quick. But I think we need to talk about your little commandments that you've got.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me just run through mine real quick and tell you my thought process and why I did it. And I'll tell you one of my biggest glaring mistakes. When we got to the third round, and I found this out later, I grabbed Marcus Colston with the Saints. Now, with me in the middle, a lot of the guys I wanted were just picked right before me, and I was thinking he was over that foot injury, and he'd even be better than last year. He's a touchdown monster. He got 10 last year, injured, 1,100 yards. I was expecting a bump from that. And I find out later he still has the same foot injury. But I'm still happy with Colston. Fourth round came up. You started the rush on the quarterbacks. I'm in the mid of the fourth round. Peyton Manning's there. I have him ranked as in my board as the third quarterback. He's still. Yeah,
you can't go wrong with Peyton Manning there. I mean, I can't stand the guy.
Saying that, I appreciate that.
No, mid-fourth round, you really can't go wrong there.
Fifth round, I almost got Gronk. One pick away from me. But I'll tell you what, I am happy, and I'm very happy with this pick. Vernon Davis.
You're off a round, buddy. You missed Gronk in the sixth.
Oh, was it the sixth?
Yep.
What was my fifth round then?
Your fifth round pick was your tight end.
Oh, it was Davis?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at the draft board here. Gonzo came off the board one pick ahead of Davis, and I
was going to take Gonzo, and you know what? I was glad he went off because my heart told me Davis, and my stats told me Gonzo. So I was happy with Davis because he just looks like he's going to be. Him and Cap are finally clicking, and they really don't have much there to throw to. So I really think Davis is going to get a lot of targets this year. I was very happy with that pick. So did I get? Is it sixth round? I got Wallace in.
Yeah, sixth round you went Wallace. And
I didn't.
Gronk.
I didn't.
Gronk. I wouldn't have wanted him either. That's one of the picks I kind of, I really question.
I'm trying to remember what was there, Scott. To be honest with you, but I said, you know what?
Well, let me put it like this. Some of the guys that came off shortly after Mike Wallace, same round, Cecil Shorts, Steve Smith, Mike Williams, Deshaun Jackson. I mean, you started a little mini wide receiver run.
The only person there that I considered over Wallace was Deshaun Jackson, but I also thought he'd drop, and I also thought Cecil Shorts would drop for another round.
Yeah.
It turns out people have been listening to our show, and I wanted Williams as my number 4. And you're right, they all went right away. I ended up with Lanton. This is what I don't like. I have 2 Saints wide receivers.
Yeah, that's another thing that I really kind of question. I mean, now granted, keep in mind, I've got 2 Saints as well. I've got a tight end and a running back Saint.
But that's completely
different. So, it's a little bit different. I can't completely throw stone, but, I mean, then again, my running back might as well be a wide receiver.
But here's my thought process, Scott. Where I have always been successful, where you're great at running backs, I have never had problems grabbing a sleeper wide receiver or grabbing that guy that's going to the matchup that week. Notice that's why very late, I grabbed Donnie Avery. You were the one that actually kind of brought me to my attention. I wanted to see Baldwin really step up, and when they traded him, I said, okay, they've got to be happy with Avery. They've got to be.
Yep.
In the preseason, and I don't put too much on preseason, Alex Smith and Bo did not really hook up to the last game, and they really started clicking the last game. So I'm pretty high on Avery as someone I can plug in if need be.
Well, I think there's another guy that you grabbed that you're getting to.
Campbell Tompkins, and as Tim had once said, Brady can throw to a shopping cart with a mannequin arm and make completions. This year is Campbell Tompkins because they are just he's a Bill Belichick type player. He runs clean routes and he doesn't make the stupid mistakes.
Yep.
And he's doing all that. He's an undrafted rookie, but him and Brady just seem to be clicking. Now, when Danny Amendola goes down, he'll be worth even more value there. So, but by the time I grabbed Lance Moore, what was it, 8th, 9th round? I just saw him as a value pick. I really see him doing a very similar 1,000+ yards, 6 touchdown season. And
you grabbed him mid 7th round, but really and truthfully, he was a good pick there. I had him on my short list for that turn, right behind you. And it's a little bit weird having Colston and him. They're both not going to completely erupt on the same weeks, but they're both solid options, so you can't go wrong there.
Well, and it was one of those situations there. I saw him as the value pick, so I took him. I'm not going to beat myself over it. He might end up being a situational play for me, depending on what he does. And now I'm also kind of glad I grabbed him if Colston does have some injury issues.
Yep.
He'll be that much more valuable. In my flex hole, I've got Vincent Brown. That's a flyer as well. Who knows? Maybe last year he didn't do anything.
Well, he is a Charger, so yeah.
But I'm just looking at. Once your boy Matthews gets hurt, they're going to have to pass the ball. Or when they're losing every week, they're going to have to pass the ball. And I really thought he would fit the West Coast system there, get me some catches, get me some points, and be a decent flex player. But we'll see. But I'll tell you what, this is my shining star on my team, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I've got Spiller and S-Jacks as my starting running backs. I've got Shane Vereen, Darrell Richardson, and now I just picked up Noshawn Moreno. I have a feeling down the road, if Richardson pans out, Vereen pans out like I think they're going to, and possibly Noshawn, I think I'm going to have a lot of ammunition if I need a wide receiver to trade. And if not, I think I have my depth at wide receiver as well. I think if Campbell Tompkins and Avery pan out like I think they're going to, I have a solid team.
Yeah, no, I really like your team. Like I said, I think you got a lot of depth. You just need a couple guys to pan out, but we're all like that. I mean, a 12-team league, you can't have Peyton Manning and Des Bryant and C.J. Spiller and Jamal. Unless you're playing with 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
You can't have studs at every position.
And I stole your Chargers from you before you grabbed them. Once again, as more as a flyer, because our league's unlimited waiver. If I have to grab another defense or 2 or 3 or 4 as we move on, I'll be okay with that.
Yeah. Well, we both know how that game gets played.
Yeah.
Week in, week out. All right. Well, anyways, let's roll over to these commandments and see how we did here. You want to read them off here?
I'll tell you what. I'll start with one, and this is something I did as much as I could. We're all busy people, but mock the draft. Jump on Yahoo, whatever site you go to, and play out scenarios. I did scenarios where I drafted wide receiver, running back, etc. And kind of played out scenarios, and it's kind of, in my opinion, it's also as being calm, collected, and ready for your draft.
Yeah, and it's nice to get a good feel for, where guys are actually going off the board, how to react, like we talked about with the situation I was in where the top 10 running backs all came off the board in front of me. How are you going to deal with it? Well, my dealing with it was basically saying, fine, if I can't have the top guys there, I'm going to have the top guys everywhere else.
That was, I saw what you did, and I sat back and looked at it later, and I go, wow, Scott really gave us the finger and kind of played that. But that's why I wanted that 12 pick. You can kind of feel what's happening, and I loved how you pulled an audible on us and said, okay, I'm going that direction, guys. You take them.
All right, well, number 2 on here is keep a draft board. Now, I mean, I think that's pretty much a no-brainer, and I would even modify that a little bit. It's something I've kind of learned over the years. It's one thing to have a board that says, my 8th running back is Ray Rice, and my 9th running back is so-and-so. And what I've really learned over the years is it's not enough to rank your guys. You really need to break them into, tiers. So that, if there's 10 running backs in your first tier and you really feel like there's an appreciable drop from the 10th guy to the 11th guy, that to look over, to another position. that you know that, oh, you know what? Yeah, you know what? There's 6 quarterbacks left on this tier. I don't need to rush to take this quarterback. I'm going to catch him on the way back.
And you know what else? Just like on draft day in a real draft league, I'd get an Excel spreadsheet and I print it out. And for ours, what do we have? 16 rounds, 12 teams.
Yeah.
I write down the position, what position that person selects. And my reason being is if everyone has a quarterback or you want to know who has what.
Absolutely, especially if you're picking near the turn but not on it. Like the guy in front of me knew, he was smart. He knew that I was still hurting for running backs. That's probably why he picked Bernard
exactly.
before the turn instead of after it. If he wasn't paying attention, he might have let him, and I would have grabbed him, and then he wouldn't have got his guy.
He's a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't just keep track of who you've got. You need to know what are the other guys who are picking. What are they looking for?
Exactly. And I'll tell you what, Scott, that guy. Since we're always a very competitive league, I think he played in 3 leagues last year and won 2 of them.
Yeah.
He doesn't play around. He listens to our show. He does his homework. He's a very solid player. So that's one thing I do. It's a simple 1-pager. And while you're talking shit on typing and looking at who you're going to pick next, I don't even write the player's name down. I just write down position. And that way I know who everybody has, and I'm going to draft accordingly. All right, I'm going to get number 3 then. I'll take the odds. Don't let your fandom ruin your draft. And let me run with this. We have a good friend, and he's not a bad fantasy player, but his fandom ruins his draft every year. Our boy Tommy loves the Packers, and he's lucky they're a good team, but he's grabbing Packers all day, and it turns out it ruins his team. He didn't make our draft this year, and he let it auto-draft. Did you see his team?
Oh, yeah. He came out fine.
He's had in 3 years.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you don't end up with, 4 Packer wide receivers.
Well, I remember him taking like a Packers kicker in like round 8.
Yeah.
Well, why are you doing that? Well, because I have to. But guys, forget. There's a reason I don't have. I'm a Redskins fan. I don't have one Redskin on my team, and there's a reason for that. I don't want to because I'm a fan of the Skins to think that this guy's just wonderful. When, in all honesty, I need to be neutral, and it's okay for me to play Cowboys, etc.
Well, there's one other reason not to do it. I know that in years past, I've made for a very, very miserable weekend when my favorite Bronco would absolutely stink up the joint, cost the team the game. Oh, and he just cost my fantasy team the game as well.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to say something else about that point. You did that when I think out of injuries that year, you were just screwed. You weren't going to go to the playoffs anyway. Tell you what, guys, if you're completely out of it and you want to grab a couple of your guys that you root for weekly because they're on your team, good for you. Enjoy your fantasy football. And I think that's kind of why you did it.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the year, don't let your fandom ruin your draft. What you got at 4?
Number 4 on the list here is don't overdraft your quarterback, and this. I guess it depends on what you consider overdraft your quarterback, because quarterbacks are coming off the board earlier and earlier. I mean, I remember years back that nobody even thought about a quarterback till 5th, 6th, 7th round. I mean, it wasn't done. And the last couple of years, I mean, it hasn't been out of the question to see a quarterback come off the board in the first round, and it's almost assumed that the first couple will be off the board in the second round. So I guess it's a matter of don't reach for that quarterback. If you can get Breeze mid-second round, good on you. But don't take him, 11th pick because you got to have that top quarterback.
This gets back to keep your draft board.
Yep.
And when the QB run happens, and it always does, who are you okay with? Like, Scott did not want Tony Romo. I would have been okay with Romo if I was stacked 5 rounds in front of him.
Yeah. See, that was one of those positions. I had 9 or 10 guys that I was okay with. And doing the math, it said, you know what? I'm going to end up with that 10th and 11th guy if I don't jump on him now. To me, I didn't overdraft. I took Cam earlier than I wanted to. but I don't feel like I overdrafted him because I would have ended up with a Stafford or a Romo, and I wasn't okay with that. I mean, I don't want to roll one of those two out every week.
Well, think about it this way, Scott. You got your number 3 overall quarterback, and I got my number 3 overall quarterback. And you and I both knew in our hearts, 1 and 2, or 1A, 1 and 1B, whatever you want to call it, 1A, 1B.
Wait. I mean, in deference to Timmy, Drew Brees is 1, right?
And no, I still disagree.
And okay, how about?
But that all being said, you and I know we're going to burn a number 1 or a number 2 pick more than likely on Brees or Rodgers. The fact that we got our guy where we didn't overdraft our quarterback.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you there. All right, let's see. Odd ones, it's you.
Be mindful of who's the next man up. Handcuff. And we talked about that earlier in the show. And now for CJ Spiller, I'm not huge on Fred Jackson, but I guess he is handcuffed. I didn't draft him because of that. You need to know who's the next man up for your studs.
Well, I don't know if it's just a matter of knowing who's up. I think it's a matter of knowing if my guy goes down, how is the team going to react? In the Bills' case, if Spiller goes down, you can probably be pretty sure that F-Jax is getting the majority of the carries. There are other situations where if the top dog goes down, you're going to be in a committee nightmare.
And I'll tell you what, Scott, and this is how I handcuffed. I burnt my 1 and 2 pick on running backs. I handcuffed that by my 1 and 2 picks for my bench for running backs. Because I know that if Spiller or Jackson or both went down, I'd have playable running backs later.
Right. And to me, that's more. I think that's almost a more effective strategy. Is instead of burning that higher pick on, Bernard Pierce because I happen to have Ray Rice and hope. Well, you're essentially Ray Rice goes on a bye, you've got nothing. You went out and in your case, you got Shane Vereen. Well, you got somebody now that not only is playable, but he's going to be a bye week fill-in for you as well. I don't necessarily think unless there's just a clear-cut guy who's just going to step in and is going to be able to produce at a high level. There's not a whole lot of handcuffs out there that are worth a roster spot most of the time. Ben Tate.
Well, I'll tell you what, the roster, the handcuffs that I thought of right away is if I ended up with Shady McCoy, Rice, and I really dropped Foster way down because I think his injuries scare me. But you're right, Tate. There's a few guys that, yes, if I had them, I would handcuff them. But F-Jax for me, I didn't see him as a viable handcuff, and that's why I went and grabbed other guys that I could see as playable people.
Right, and I'm with you 100%. If you don't see the handcuff as being viable, that they're going to be able to perform at a high level, that you're going to be able to just plug them into your start. If you don't feel like that handcuff can be plugged into your starting lineup, this is somebody that no-brainer, okay, he's down, I can plug this guy in. Look elsewhere. Find somebody else who you can.
Tim, what do you think? Oh, man. Go on, Tim.
I can do it for you.
I agree.
Oh, okay. There you go.
There we go.
Right, Tim. All right. Thanks for plugging it. Thanks for your input there, Sid. All right. You got 6.
Don't overdraft or underdraft rookies. There's always rookies that get hyped through the ceiling. I think the guy this year, Tavon Austin, good grief. He's been going off the board. He came off the board, okay, just for example, he came off the board in our league in the 7th round in front of Greg Jennings, Lance Moore, Stevie Johnson, Giovanni Bernard, T.Y. Hilton, Jermichael Finley, Shane Vereen, Miles Austin, and Quan Bolden. Get real. This guy, is he talented? Yes. Is he going to put up more points than those guys?
No.
Maybe 1 or 2 of them, but no. Come on. Every year there's rookies that get hyped through the ceiling. But at the same time, you shouldn't just shy away from guys because they're rookies. There are rookies like You're Ken Burrell Tompkins.
Yep.
You know what? 11th round, steal.
Well, and that's why I took him. And I'll tell you what, I hate rookie wide receivers. But in the 11th round, he's sitting there. How could I pass him?
Especially with Jordan Cameron off the board.
Well, and I was wide receiver deficient. Did Jordan Cameron go before Campbell Tompkins?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
but in all honesty, he did go to the proper team.
Who'd he go to?
The Anal Thunder.
You know whose team that is, right?
No.
Our very own Tim.
Oh, that's right. That is Timmy's, isn't it? Way to go, Timmy.
Tim, who was your other tight end?
Tight end, Killer.
Tim, you know he's hurt, right? Dummy. Who else did you get, Tim?
Heartline. Tannehill and Heartline.
He did get Tannehill and Heartline.
Well, nobody else is going to take those two.
I was going to say, you could have just left them on the wire. No one wanted them.
Did he take Tannehill for real?
I think he did. I know.
Yeah, you're right. He did. 15th round. Oh man.
They don't let your fandom ruin your draft.
Yeah, way to go, Timmy. All right.
All right, where are we?
Number 7.
Pay attention to the depth. Where am I at? To the depth chart.
Well, I mean, I think that pretty much goes without saying. I mean, like T.Y. Hilton, we all, we're watching that like a hawk.
But
Dobson.
For instance, your pick. If you that running back pick for the Lions, what's his name? That you took?
Mikel LaShore.
LaShore. I'll tell you what, though, if you didn't pay much attention to depth chart, you probably would assume he's the handcuffed Reggie Bush.
That's it. Dobson over in New England. If you went in not paying attention to what was going on. Oh man, look at Dobson. He's tearing it up in preseason. Well, he's probably their 4th wide receiver at best.
Exactly. Absolutely. And Dobson got drafted.
He was taking 2 spots behind Tompkins. Now you tell me which one's better value.
Well, exactly. And I'll tell you what, I was the one that was pressed for Dobson, and I ended up with Tompkins because I'm not a dummy.
Yep. All right. Number 8 is read the league scoring, and that's a huge deal. You better know, like we've been talking about, our league's a little bit different. You better show up with some wide receivers, or you're in trouble. You better know that it's a half PPR, because if not, you're going to watch Darren Sproles and guys like him just disappear and wonder why.
Well, I'll tell you even more why I put that in, Scott. I played in we call it the Fairfax Dumps League. Last year, they had some crazy, basically defense was worth double. And I still won the league, but I went in, I accepted the play at the end. I asked them, what is it? They said standard scoring. So I went in and drafted as such. I went running back, because you could start 3 running backs. And that's why I won the league, because they didn't know how to draft. But I was wondering why defenses were flying off so early. And basically all the defensive scoring were double the points. And I didn't read the scoring. And if I did, I would have been grabbing a defense pretty early, which normally, and I did what I normally did. I took them my second, right at the end.
Yeah, you did the right thing anyways. You still don't draft defenses that early. But that's why I don't. You see, that leads us to the corollary for this rule. Rule 8B, don't play with dumbasses.
I have to, because they need to win every year. If I put in the league and end up with some money, I'm happy. I don't care.
All right. What's number 9?
Youth versus experience, which is, the way I see it, is upside versus decline. Where you guys really put it, the experience that I saw in the name, if you will, like a Steve Smith, Carolina. He went probably wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in our draft, where in all honesty, I could see someone like Tompkins, who I took way late, outscoring him this year. So you need to understand upside. You need to understand where you're taking your flyers, why you're taking your flyers, versus who's on the decline and are not. Don't draft them because of a name. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, if you got a guy like him, Smith's not doing any better than he did last year. Chances are he's going to fall off a little bit. There's other guys out there like James Jones in Green Bay, who the upside's there. You don't know exactly what he's going to come up with, but the sky's the limit there.
He's a touchdown.
Anyways, your last one kind of falls into it. It's relatively similar, but it's know your suspensions, injuries, and risk versus reward. Risk versus reward to me kind of falls into the same type of deal. Is Steve Smith a risky pick? No, he's not a risky pick. You kind of know what you're getting. However, the reward on other guys who were drafted in the same area, and just for example, I'll use the guy that you picked, Mike Wallace.
Yeah.
Mike Wallace, I don't really feel he's going to have much of a year, but he's got a lot higher upside potential than Steve Smith. So 2 picks apart, I'd much rather have Wallace than Smith. As far as suspensions and injuries, suspensions, you better know Justin Blackman's suspended for 4 weeks. But at the same time, okay, I'll just use me as an example. I took a risk by taking a guy that's going to miss the first quarter of the season. But look at the reward on the backside.
And you also took someone like a Greg Little, who I wouldn't have looked at if the number 1 wide receiver wasn't suspended.
Right.
He's going to get targets.
Now in the first few weeks while I'm thin at wide receiver, I've got another option. Know your injuries. It goes without saying.
There's one player on your team that hits all of this other than suspensions. Injuries, risk, reward. Ryan Matthews is a running back 1 caliber player. If he's healthy and keep his head out of his ass. You grabbed him. Where did you grab him? 10th round?
Nah, 7th round.
7th round.
7-8 turn, so whatever.
You have a potentially, and we'll see how he clicks with this new offense, if someone can block for him, etc. But when you're talking 7th round for a guy, at worst, could be a very solid running back too.
Yep.
Of course, he has injury history. That's the reason he dropped. He's had issues with the offense before.
Let's be fair. He's beaten me like I'm his, redheaded stepchild.
Well, I hated to bring his name up because you might get some tears, but those are the type of situations I see. Danny Amendola is another one. Our friend Sean grabbed him. If he's healthy for the entire season, he's going to be disgusting. But I couldn't take him early because I don't see him making 6 weeks.
Right.
So anyway, you want to touch on anything from your lessons from last year?
Yeah, I'll run through these real fast. I mean, I've already mentioned the first one.
You've got some great stuff in there, so I think
And like I mentioned before, I like to make some notes at the end of the year just to kind of reinforce it when I go to start getting my team ready for the next year. Kind of not to repeat the same mistakes. We all make mistakes during the course of a season. The first lesson I learned was don't draft players you shouldn't, just because they're value. I drafted in 2012 Ryan Matthews and Michael Vick, and basically those two probably cost me the championship that year. I made the playoffs, but trying to fill in a quarterback and starting running back from the waiver wires, no easy task.
You were a waiver wire hero in 2012, though. I remember.
Yeah, I was a waiver wire hero. Made the playoffs without my starting quarterback and having Jimmy Graham.
Lost number 1 and number 2 pick, and you still made the playoffs. So
I had Jimmy Graham flame out. I lost my starting running back. I lost my starting quarterback. But anyways, you still can't overcome it and win the championship. Another big one: never, ever, 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 ever bench your studs. I got way too cute trying to play matchups, benching guys that had no business being on the bench. If you're spending your first, say 6-round picks on guys, it's because they're your starters. If you want to get cute with your 3rd wide receiver, that's fine. But if you spent a 2nd-round pick on a running back, that's because you're going to play him every week. Any arguments there? Anything to add?
I used to love the questions. I've always helped people through the years. Oh, he's going to be on Revis Island, or they're playing the Seahawks this week. So their defensive backs are so great, and then the guy's going for 100 and a touch. and you've got your stud who you drafted round 2, round 3 on the bench. Why? They're automatic. You don't even think about them. Play them.
That's it. And this one kind of goes back to the whole Tavon Austin thing. Number 3, very good, predictable players are better than the it player this year.
Yep.
One of the things that saved me last year was I took Roddy White later than I should have been able to get him because he wasn't the it player. That steady guy who's solid every year is a whole lot better than some unproven guy who, this is the year he's going to break out.
Roddy is the prototypical. I understand there's a young guy there that tears it up as well, but Roddy White's numbers are always on par. And you get him a round or 2 later, and damn, that's how you win your league.
Yep. And this is one where you kicked my butt on last year. This was all great pick last year. Good players can come back from injuries. See Adrian Peterson. You took him at the 2-3 turn last year because everyone else was chicken shit, and you basically said no. He's going to. I'm sure you wouldn't expect a 2,000-yard year out of the guy, but
no, I benched him week 1, and he scored 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yep. But there's another corollary to this. But always hurt players should not be picked. Sidney Rice and Kenny Britt. I took flyers on both of them last year, knowing I shouldn't have, and once again got screwed by both. They were actually, both of them were not on my board this year. I took this one to heart. I didn't even put either of them on my wide receiver board. I didn't care if they were there in the 15th round. I didn't want them.
I didn't have them on my board either.
Yep. But good players, like CMJD this year, he is a good player. He can come back. Don't underestimate the ability. I shied away from him this year because I think people are oversold on his comeback because of what Peterson did.
I was picking him round 3 if he was there. That's how high him I was. He's a round 3 pick.
Yeah, I would have taken him end of 2, early 3. He went a little bit too early for my taste. But anyways, that was one of my lessons. Another one, and I really think this is one a lot of us are guilty of. Once-in-a-lifetime seasons are just that. Don't extrapolate a record-setting season as a player's normal. And I think Adrian Peterson, people are falling into that trap with him this year. He had just an unbelievable season last year, and people are just assuming, he's going to do the same thing this year. Megatron caught almost 2,000 yards last year. The only thing saving grace for him, fantasy-wise, this year is he didn't have a lot of touchdowns. But if someone has this record-breaking, crazy year, well, guess what? It doesn't mean he's going to do it the next year.
I read a stat on how often the number 1 running back in fantasy has done it back-to-back. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, you have guys, Marshall Faulk, for a couple of years there, he was crazy. If you were playing fantasy when Marshall Faulk was here, it was almost like, it was almost not fair. It was like whoever had Faulk was just at an advantage. Terrell Davis was just a beast for a few years. I mean, just utter beast. But yeah, I mean, it's just it can't be sustained. You don't stay number 1 every year. It just doesn't. Teams adapt. If you're that good, guess what? Then the defense just pays that much more attention to you.
Hey Scott, let me ask you a question. Now that there are drafts over, who did you have as your number 1 running back?
I never made up my mind. I was going into the draft, and I had decided that if I had the first pick, I was going to go with Doug Martin.
It's funny you say that. I finally talked myself into having to take AP, but I had Martin as 2 and ended up with Jamal Charles at 3.
Yeah, and I don't think, and really truthfully, I mean, when you're quibbling. If you get one of those 3 guys, hey, you know what? You're fine.
That's why I wanted to be 1, 2, or 3 or at the end of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I had a running back tier that it was those guys. I was talking a little bit earlier about having, I didn't just rank them, I tier them so that I know that, if I get one of these guys in this area, I'm good.
Yeah.
And if I miss out on that, then I wait till the next tier. I don't want to be the first guy picking in a tier. I want to be the last guy picking in a tier.
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. Anyways, I'll try and rush through the last few of these lessons. Touchdowns 1 year does not necessarily mean touchdowns the next. Touchdowns are kind of flukish, especially for wide receivers. I mean, just because they caught 12 touchdowns this year, that doesn't mean they're going to catch 12 next year. It can really fluctuate a lot. Megatron was a perfect example last year. He had 4 touchdowns. I mean, who saw that one coming?
Yeah.
He still had an insane year, but it just kind of goes to show, it's just the most glaring example. Just because somebody scores touchdowns one year doesn't mean they're showing up the next year. So, don't bank on them. Now, on the flip side of that, a guy that like Brian Hartline, who never finds the end zone, gets one touchdown a season. Well, guess what? The chances are they're still not going to find it.
We discussed Andre Johnson. He's one of those guys too. Tears it up, but doesn't find the end zone. There's a few guys out there. Hartline, Johnson, these guys just can't find the end zone for some reason.
Yeah, the guys that can't find it don't ever seem to find it. Guys that do find it, they will fluctuate a little bit. So just
the saying they have a nose for the end zone is true.
Yeah, yes, but they can have years where the nose disappears a little bit.
Well, you can't blame Megatron for that when you don't have anybody else to throw the ball to. What do you do?
Don't. Yeah, that kind of gets into one of my other lessons. But yeah, you're absolutely right on that. Here's another. This is more for a later round deal.
Yeah.
And we've kind of touched on this a little bit already. Upside should not be ignored, and this is one that I was extremely guilty of. It's very important after your core is picked. So after your core is picked, what you should be looking for is guys who's got upside. You don't need the wide receiver that you can bank on 45 catches for 650 yards and 4 scores. He's not going to help your team. You need the guy that he might have 30 catches, or he might be the guy that steps in and you can start him every week if things work out. We had in our league the year before, Beanie Wells came off the board 2 spots before Spiller. Spiller saved my season.
If I remember, did you draft Spiller or did you grab him off the waiver wire?
No, I drafted Beanie Wells. And when F-Jack started the season off, I got a hold of Spiller, and then Spiller just erupted.
Gotcha.
So, but it was a bonehead move. I went with Beanie Wells is starting. Well, Beanie Wells starting for the Cardinals is useless. And I should have known that, and that's part of I wrote it down. Don't grab guys that, they're going to be useless to you. Just because, they're the next, go for the guy swing for that fence. You got to have guys you can plug in on bye weeks. I understand that, but you don't win with guys like that. You're going to win with guys who can end up being that running back 2 for you, who can end up being that wide receiver 2 for you if things work out.
Well, let me chime in here. If you and I consistently, I went back and looked at since I started playing, I've never been worse than 3rd place, basically 3rd, 4th place. Same with you, from looking at your stats.
Yeah, I've had a couple, barring 1 or 2 leagues. Yeah,
I'm just saying, and the reason being is prediction of upside is where we win.
Right.
We set our team. And then if you look at our bench, it's all these people that, look at the upside on these guys.
Yeah. And that's part of working the waiver wire, too, is seeing guys that got a little bit of playing time that week that you say, man, this guy's got the ability. And I think you, a couple years ago, you were on the Victor Cruz bandwagon before everybody. Before he broke out big time, you had already scooped him up and said, yep. And all of a sudden, we're sitting here looking at you going, oh, crap.
That's where I was getting ready to go with that. I grabbed Miles Austin before he broke out.
Right.
Victor Cruz. The thing is when you see that flash,
that's it.
Because guess what? When he has the breakout game and you're not the number 1 guy on the wire, you're not getting him.
That's it.
You got to jump on that guy before he has that breakout game.
That's it. And all right. This is one, it did not curse me last year, but I saw it and I just shook my head. Wide receivers need a quarterback. Even great ones. See Larry Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Larry was a wide receiver 1 in every draft I saw last year, and he finished as a wide receiver 4 or 5 in scoring. I guess depending on how your scoring was set up. He was in the 40s.
Scott, I played in 1 10-team league last year, standard scoring. He was dropped.
Yeah. He had, in standard scoring, whether you didn't get points for receptions, he was number 42 last year. He finished this season behind Santano Moss, sorry. You can tell I've been having some beers.
Tim, do you like quarterbacks?
Brookneck and Brady.
Oh, okay. Oh, thanks, Tim. You're really contributing tonight.
Where is Tim, by the way?
I
think since it's a Sunday, we have 7 Dick Sundays. Because I had his shirt when I left, so I was like, fuck. You're on your own, my friend.
All right. And the final lesson learned. And I actually went against this one this year because, well, I think mine, Cam, is in a different class, is number 9. Running quarterbacks get hurt. Michael Vick.
I agree.
RG3. I mean, it's. I heard someone put it in a way that made some sense to me this past week. It's not that running quarterbacks are more prone to injury than your standard pocket quarterback. It's that they are exposed to more hits. So, Tom Brady, he may get hurt once every, 300 hits. And Michael Vick may get hurt once every 300 hits. But Michael Vick is going to take those 300 hits way faster than Brady is. I mean, does that make sense? What I'm saying is...
Did you see my backup QB pick this year?
Yeah, the dog killer.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, wait, that's...
Scott, you're absolutely right, because I'll tell you what. Brady is a pocket passer, Manning, etc. And they also have a gift of the pocket passer knows, I'm getting ready to get hit, I'm getting rid of the ball.
Right.
Whereas, and I don't...
Well,
and tell me if I'm wrong here. Vic,
good ones do.
etc. They're still taking hits in the pocket. It's almost like I get hit when I run. It's okay to get hit now.
Yeah, there's a little bit difference. I mean, there's a difference between some of the hits that Vic absorbs. I mean, there's a reason why Michael Vick doesn't make it 16 games. When you're busting downfield and you don't see the guy coming because he's coming. It's kind of like those blindside hits. Yeah. That's part of why Ron Dane 2.0 won't be the starter in Denver.
Yeah.
Because they don't want Peyton Manning taking a bunch of blindside hits.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why I grabbed Noshawn today, because I really see him as the best all-around person. Now, one other thing I just want to chime in on before we finish this up. There's certain non-fantasy players that you also need to be aware of. You and I talked about today. Cooper. Is it Cooper? For the Cardinals?
Yeah.
He's gone. He's probably their best lineman there, if one of their best linemen. He's out for the season with a broken fibula. If an offensive line is no longer able to protect and they're already bad to begin with, now you got to bump, in my opinion, you got to bump down Palmer, you got to bump down Mendy, you got to bump down possibly Fitz as well.
Well, Mendy's probably done too.
Well, yeah, I heard that. He feels looseness in his knee.
Yeah, the one that they've already put back together.
Yeah. The poor Cards, but it's...
Basically, if you have any Cardinals on your team, just it's time to go ahead and cut bait and move on, because that team is going to be playing for the number 1 draft choice along with the Jets and the Raiders.
Well, I'm getting...
Talk about train wrecks.
What I'm getting at is, though, non-fantasy players can have impact on teams.
Oh, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, Cooper's injury takes Palmer down a notch. It finishes the Cardinals' running game. I mean, where you were maybe thinking about, Mendenhall maybe can be a running back too, not without Cooper in there.
Nope. And like my Skins, they're a left tackle away from RG3 not being protected.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players. You just keep in mind when you see or you're reading the injuries or what's going on. If you see one of your guys' O-linemen go down and they're questionable to begin with, think of what they're going to throw out there to protect your running back, your quarterback, or give your wide receiver time to make a catch or tight end. This is something people don't think about when they're playing fantasy football. Fantasy football is not easy. You have to think. It's strategy. There's a reason that Scott and I and other people win year in, year out. We understand the strategy of fantasy football. Everything we talked about today, you need to know. if you don't know this, you're not going to win. You're not going to win money. You're going to be the guy out looking on the outside looking in and not making the playoffs. Sam, what do you think?
I just think there's so many other running backs out there that I would rather focus on.
Tim, we weren't talking about running backs, but
Once again, thank you for chiming in. All right, Scott, you got anything else?
No, I don't think I do.
I'll tell you what, this is a very serious show for once. Listen to it, take it to heart. You're ready for your draft. If you follow these very easy steps, we broke down years of experience into easy steps for you. Don't listen to Tim, because he's a guy drafting, some people that none of us want.
Yeah, steal his team name though.
And Heartline.
But those of us who don't come in last place and win.
Hey, look, I think right now we just have to accept the fact that he's got the league wrapped up. He's got Jordan Cameron.
Is Tim Paul from Florida?
Anyway, I'm pretty sure they spoon.
You know what? I told you the same thing. I hope you and I don't have to eat crow after this, but I listened to a fantasy show coming in. I refuse to do it because I wanted a completely different, clean perspective. And the guy said Jordan Cameron's a top 5 tight end this year. So I'm really hoping that everything that we're spewing is correct, and I think it is because neither one of us has ever had a year that we've been the bad player. A bad year for us is when we've come third place. Anyway, all right,
well,
guys.
you gotta, just be fair. That's pretty much me every year.
Well, you always get screwed somehow when it comes to playoff time. But hey, follow us on Twitter, 2guys1jock. If you got a question, we'll be happy to answer it. Email us at 2guys1jock@gmail.com. You can check out our website and stream our podcast at 2guys1jock.com. Thank you for listening. Good luck on your drafts.